What's the best way to capture salmon returning to their spawning grounds? Stills? Maybe with 7 frames per second burst? Or would 30 frames per second be better? How's 4K video? Maybe HD with slow motion? With the Nikon D850, that's all possible.
Hey photographers, Nikon's latest brand campaign is I Am, and for the Nikon D850, 40 Nikon name units up from the 3-year-old D810, it's I Am the difference maker. I'm the crowd pleaser is more like it. I'm not holding it, I'm shooting this video with it, and it's kind of a long video, so there's a menu in the description below that will let you navigate to the sections that may be of interest to you.
This is Nikon's penultimate model, only the flagship D5 stands above it. A 45 megapixel full-frame sensor creates images measuring 8,256 pixels by 4,640. No detail is left unrevealed. If you're watching this 4K video on a 4K screen, you're seeing an 8 megapixel version. The full images are available on Flickr. And it's receiving high accolades. The DxO mark score is 100, a new high watermark. And it has all kinds of interesting technology. A backside illuminated sensor, no optical low-pass filter, and taken together, that means clear, crisp, and detailed images with lots of dynamic range. And while 45 megapixels provides sparkling detail, it also allows a substantial crop. The D850 supports both the SD card format, up to SD XC UHS-2 type, 312 megabytes per second, 2 rows of contacts on the back, and the XQD format, with transfer rates currently up to 400 megabytes. We'll try that when we shoot some burst. But let's start with Snapbridge. Nope, save that to later, although Nikon wants me to configure it when I first start the camera. Let's start with burst and focus speed, which, if you haven't seen Matt Granger's Ninja comparison to the D5, is worth watching, link below. Let's size up the burst mode. Turn the dial to CH. First, Nikon raises the burst ceiling to 200 images. Still not sure why a limit is needed, but... So, we'll shoot full FX-sized, full resolution JPEG fine star images to a freshly formatted G-type XQD card. All settings, exposure, focus, and color in standard or manual. The D850 is rated for 7 frames. The optional D850 specific battery grip paired with the optional D18 battery releases a 9-frame mode. The viewfinder flickers, but the D850 takes 200 frames in 28 seconds, marginally more than 7 per second. The buffer, bottom right, displays 34 images to start, but holds at about 25 images until the 200 images are recorded. Switching to the SD card, the results were identical, so that turned out to be not much of a challenge for the D850 or the cards. I added RAW. First, the buffer fills up quickly, and you can hear the shutter slow after 4 seconds of 7 frames, and it continues about 4. I counted 71 images, 142 files, in 15 seconds. Then to the SD card, where the buffer fills in 3 seconds and the 7 frame rate slows to maybe 3 per, 52 images in 15 seconds. My conclusion? You only need XQD if you're shooting RAW, but you're better off shooting JPEG. I'm going to digress for a moment to switch to live view. Press the I button and select silent mode. Yes, it's completely silent, not like quiet. Silent, no sound. 1, at continuous high, can do about 6 images per second. There's no info display, the screen refreshes slow, but the buffer status does appear on the LCD panel. It averages about 5 per second, 318 images in 60 seconds. Yes, 318 images. There does not seem to be a limit in live view silent mode 1. Then silent mode 2, which crops the image area to DX and quality to JPEG normal star. Focus and exposure are fixed at the first image. But now, the D850 can record 30 frames per second. It's limited to 3 seconds, but 90 shots in 3 seconds is amazing. Live view may have its quirks, and Silent 2 has limitations, but between Silent 1's unlimited burst mode and Silent 2's speed, this is nice power to have. Combining burst with continuous focus, I had no trouble when cyclists were moving towards me. Every shot's in focus, but I could not find the right setting to get the D850 to pick up a cyclist passing through the shot. According to Nikon, the body, made of magnesium alloy and carbon fiber, is dust and water drop resistant. I think that's drops of water, not dropping it in water, so maybe not weather sealed. It's a good size and weight, slightly over a kilo. The 24-120 lens adds another 700 grams. A deep grip makes it easy to hold. The body, back, front, and top is covered with buttons, switches, and dials. There's a focus point selection joystick. I'm not crazy about the top left dial, but in practice it works well. The release button for the drive collar underneath is well positioned. The right side switches are differentiated enough that you can identify them when shooting with the viewfinder. The left side are identical, but in the dark slide the power switch to illuminate. All the ports are on the left side, behind easy-to-open rubber gasket covers, microphone, headphone, USB 3 Micro B, and HDMI Mini, which is a little more robust than the Micro found on most cameras. The viewfinder's diopter, pull it out to adjust, turns enough so I can shoot without my glasses, and that's more than most Nikons. And someone got the message that we're always losing the little plastic thing that's supposed to cover the viewfinder. There's a switch that closes a curtain. Nice. The camera's status can be viewed from the top display panel. Nikon calls this the LCD. When off, the installed cards are displayed with the available space at current settings. I wish it also displayed battery status. Turn the camera on to see the current settings: meter, exposure mode, quality setting, focus settings, and battery status. Aperture and shutter speed appear once the shutter is soft press. For illumination, swing the on-off switch to the right. Press the info button to see this information on the monitor on the back, a tilting 3.2-inch 2.4 million dot touch-sensitive LCD. While I'm willing to forgive the cryptic icons on the LCD panel on top, I wouldn't mind a little more text on the monitor. There's lots of room to elaborate on the meter, focus, and white balance settings. By default, the display disappears pretty quickly. Use custom settings C4, which controls display time for a bunch of things. I upped the information display to 20 seconds. The monitor display flips from gray to white as lighting conditions change. Stop this on the setup menu using the information display setting and select a manual option. Although Nikon's menu is generally well organized, this doesn't seem to belong in setup. But this is also where monitor brightness is found. Let's configure our basic settings for stills. The menu button's on the left, which I typically object to, but here it makes sense. The menu can be navigated using the navigation ring or touch, but not the joystick. Pick the card you'd like to use and, if you've installed two, the role for the second card, overflow, dual record, and if you're shooting RAW plus, RAW on one, JPEG on the other. Image area selects how much of the sensor you're using. Full sensor is FX. Crop in post if you need. By default, in the viewfinder, there's a black frame to show the crop. Turn on viewfinder mask to display a border. Live view shows the image as it will be taken. Oh, and the D850, like other Nikon FX models, automatically switches to DX when a DX lens is mounted. That can be turned off, but when a DX lens is used, you'll see a black vignette for the area of the sensor that's larger than a DX frame. Image quality TIFF. Haven't seen that in a while. 6 flavors of JPEG, each of which can be combined with RAW. Full Monty for me. Now, 3 sizes of JPEG image. The resolution here is dependent on the image area, but it's the JPEG conversion that downsamples to resolutions other than large. RAW files can be uncompressed, compressed, or lossless compressed. For comparison, at FX size, for this image, the RAW file is 95 megabytes at 14-bit uncompressed, 72 at 12-bit uncompressed, 51 at 14-bit lossless compressed, 43 at 14-bit compressed, and JPEG Fine Star is 23 megabytes. With that out of the way, it's the familiar Nikon exposure system. Select the meter mode using the meter button, top left and the rear dial, matrix, center, weighted, spot, and highlight spot, useful when your subject is much lighter than the rest of the scene. At a poetry reading, I started with center weighted, which, with a minimum shutter of 125, made the faces a little bright. The resulting ISO was also high, 16,000 and up. I switched the meter to highlight spot and what's much happier with the exposure, as well as the ISO, as low as 3600. In manual, rear dial is the shutter, 1/8000 to 30 seconds, then bulb and timer. Bulb exposes while you hold the shutter down. Timer, the first press opens, the second closes. There's no time display on the LCD or the monitor in viewfinder or live view mode. The kit lens provided for this review is the 24 to 120 mm 5x zoom lens. Has a constant f4 aperture when wide, closes to f22, adjusted using the front dial. For a longer than average reach, it's a smaller and lighter than average lens. Filter diameter 77 mm. I appreciate the distance window and the soft detents on the focus ring, which is the ring closest to the camera. It's an optically stabilized lens, Nikon's VR designation. It uses the older AFS focus motor system. There's a switch on the lens in addition to the switch on the body to select manual. How long can the D850 and I keep a handheld shot steady? Not enough for 1 second, but I did manage to get one at ½ second. Closest focus is 45 centimeters, ideal for some nice shots of Emile at Ravine. Press the ISO button behind the shutter and turn the rear dial. 64 to 25,600 are the standard settings. High 1 and 2 as well as low are available. The front dial toggles auto ISO on and off. I like that. After dinner, I tried the high ISOs, starting with 6400 and going up to 25.6 thousand. Then high 1, which identifies as 51.2 thousand in Lightroom, and high 2, 102.4 thousand. A color shift, but even this is on the edge of usability. Auto ISO can be configured in the menu, with a maximum ISO and a triggering shutter speed, labeled as minimum. I'm not happy with Nikon semantics here. When shooting in P or A modes, the shutter speed will decrease to the trigger. Then the ISO will start to increase, but when the maximum ISO is reached, the shutter speed will set under the minimum. Focus settings will also be familiar. Press the focus button and turn the rear dial for mode, single, or continuous. Each focuses when the shutter is soft pressed or the AF on is pressed. Focus confirmation is the dot bottom left. The viewfinder focus mode uses phase detection with 153 focus points, primarily in the center of the screen. Turn the front dial for area with single, single point, group, and auto. The display is exceedingly cryptic. It's a little clearer on the LCD. With single point, there are 153 focus points. 55 can be selected using the joystick. Nikon calls this the sub-selector. Group, which displays 4 points, is also selectable. With both, the area is limited to the center of the screen. Focus is lens dependent. Not all lenses support all focus points. With continuous, single point 9, 25, 72, and 153 dynamic points. 3D for tracking moving objects. Group area for subjects where a single point is too small. Auto to let the camera decide. For manual focus, the white dot will tell you when the object under the focus dot is in focus. And the fun starts all over again in live view with a different focus system that uses contrast detection but covers the entire screen. AF single and AFF or full-time servo, and new areas, face detect, wide, normal, and pinpoint, different sizes which can be positioned anywhere on the screen using the joystick or touch. The joystick cursor starts slowly but accelerates as it's held. And subject tracking, touch to select and track. The on-screen button stops it, although it can follow nicely. If the distance changes, it's not fast, and it doesn't follow smoothly. You'll have better luck in viewfinder mode for stills. The D850's focus shift feature can be programmed to take a number of images where the focus changes slightly. These tulips are about 25 centimeters from front to back. A little trial and error to figure out that I needed about 30 shots. You can select up to 300. With a focus step width of 8 arbitrary Nikon focus units to give me the shots I needed. Saving them in a new folder will make it easier to import them into Photoshop. With a focus spot on the front tulip, I started. A quick scan to make sure I've got the focus front to back. This is one of the times when there is a difference between XQD and SD. Reviewing the images on XQD card is much faster. Now I won't do a Photoshop tutorial, but after importing the stack and then aligning and blending, I have an image where all the tulips are in focus. AF Fine-Tune looks like an interesting feature, but the manual warns it's not recommended for most situations and may interfere with normal focus. Thanks. There are many focus custom settings. For both continuous and single, set whether to prioritize focus or shutter release. A3 adjusts the focus lock-on tracking's response. If it reacts quickly, it can focus on an object in the foreground, or delay so it's not easily distracted. And it can track motion smoothly for objects approaching or receding or erratic. 3D tracking can be enhanced with face detect. And the size of the 3D area can be adjusted, although the change is not apparent in the viewfinder. Focus points can be reduced from 55 to 15 for faster selection. Focus point and area can be stored by orientation. There's an Easter egg here. It saves 3 spots: right-hand up portrait, landscape, and right-hand down portrait. AF activation can be both from the shutter and the dedicated AF on button, or just AF on for back focus. The number of focus selections can be limited. Just check the ones you want. Focus point selection can wrap from left to right or not, and there are options to determine when the focus point appears on screen. There's a dedicated AF on button, but there's also the option to customize other buttons to simultaneously select the area and AF on. For example, the preview button can be set to select and AF on, and you can select which AF mode you want. Power users can set multiple custom buttons with individually configured focus modes. While we're here, the viewfinder's roll and pitch indicators are so well hidden, but there are a few buttons, like Fun 1, that can be assigned to Viewfinder Virtual Horizon. Press the button to turn the level indicators on, display screen right and bottom. They stay on until the camera turns off, or press the button to turn them off again. For color settings, set the white balance using the left side top button and turning the rear dial. 9 high-level settings, including Kelvin and custom presets. Many have options. There are 6 custom slots, 3 variants on auto, 6 on fluorescent, and a wide range of tuning along the green, magenta, and amber blue axis. Of course, when you're shooting with a speedlight in Peller's cold and blue ice wine lounge, flash is the only way to get natural skin tones. Here's a DSC Labs color chart with Auto 0, keep white, Auto 1, normal, and Auto 2, keep warm. To create a custom white balance, select the preset slot, then press the white balance button until pre starts to flash, either on the monitor or the LCD. Release the shutter while pointed at a reference white. The LCD will flash good. Even easier in live view, press until pre-flashes, then touch the monitor on a white area. Data acquired appears. Select Done to save. Press the key to select a color profile. Picture controls in the Nikon language, auto, standard, monochrome, and vivid, and then neutral and flat. Like white balance, these settings are not applied to the RAW file. Neutral is minimal processing, as is flat, but in flat a wider dynamic range is captured. I'll demonstrate that when I get to video. These are presets, which can be extensively customized. Want more saturation for fall colors than vivid? Turn it up. Or increase the sharpening and clarity for a crisper image. Or not. Lots of potential here to create the look you're after in camera. But remember, like white balance, these settings are not applied to the RAW file. There's a new HDR. In the past, the settings were adjectives like high and extra high. Now they're numerical, 1, 2, and 3 stops, and that makes the effect a little less exaggerated. The D850 does not have a hand-holding green auto mode. There are no scene modes, there are no effect filters like toy and miniature, there's no panorama mode. This is a serious camera. To shoot video, switch to Live View mode, which flips the mirror out of the way, and rotate the Live View lever to the movie camera position. If the display isn't this screen that shows the audio meters, press Info until you get to it. Use the I menu, an on-screen overlay menu that provides most of the video options. 4K, the UHD 3840 by 2160 format, is available at 30, 25, and 24 frames. Down at Full HD, 60 and 50 are available. At 720, only 60 and 50. Record length is limited to 1 second less than 30 minutes per segment. In addition, there are 3 in-camera slow motion speeds, 5 times for 24 frame, 4 times for 25 and 30, and these are limited to 3 minutes per segment. In HD, there are 2 quality options, normal and high. Guess which I choose? There's no option in 4K. The data rates, 4K 30 is about 120 megabits, 4K 24 about 100, HD 60 about 40, HD 30 data rate about 22 megabits. For the slow-mo files, the crop is about 1.5 or DX. Recording length is limited to 3 minutes. At 5 times that's 15 minutes of playback, and the recordings are silent. Data rate is about 30 megabits. As these are probably actually recording at 120 frames, would be nice to just have straight 120 frame recording. While recording video, the I menu provides a limited set of options, but can be used to adjust mic sensitivity, activate the attenuator, select frequency response, wind noise reduction, the power aperture, exposure compensation, and turn on highlight stripes and select peaking level. The shutter speed, the aperture, and ISO can all be adjusted while recording, as well as the white balance and the audio level. The touchscreen works even when an external monitor is connected. The level of the highlight stripe is set as a custom movie setting, G2. This is based on the luminance level in the RGB space. 255 is effective for the absolute maximum, but I find 248 provides a little more headroom. With a video background, I'd prefer the typical 0 to 100 IRE scale. Then use the I menu to turn the stripes on, and to adjust the aperture, turn on the power aperture. The dial is noisy and abrupt, but using the controller, the steps are quieter and a little more gradual. The same focus settings are available as live view stills, but I was often frustrated by slow or ineffective focus, and while the touchscreen is useful, it doesn't really work for a rack focus. For manual focus, use peaking, but you'll have to turn off the highlight display first, and vice versa. If you want highlight display, you have to turn off peaking first. Wouldn't it be easier just to have one auto-cancel the other, or have them on the same menu option? 3 sensitivity levels are available, and incidentally the peaking display appears only on the camera screen, not an external monitor. Set the peaking color using custom setting D8. Before connecting an external monitor, look back in the box to find this accessory that clearly says we're serious about video. In addition to the larger mini HDMI connector, a cable clip to securely connect the HDMI cable. Yes! The HDMI options are in the setup menu. In addition to auto, the output format can be set from 2160 down to 480. The D850 supports external recording control for Atomos recorders, but that doesn't work in 4K or in the slow-mo mode. There's an on-screen icon to indicate it's recording. Output range is an option not found elsewhere. Limited reduces the RGB output to 16 to 234 instead of 1 to 255. Unless you know you need limited, leave this on auto. the output display can be limited to 95% size. If the monitor doesn't show the edges of the image and you need to see them, use 95. For recording, use 100. Turning on-screen display off removes the camera information overlay from the output for a clean feed. This is only available in HD. The only 4K output is clean. Dual monitor enables display on both the on-camera screen and the external display. Off turns off the on-camera display, but it reappears to display the menu. Note that the on-camera display aspect is 4:3 and the 16:9 external display with data are slightly different. Pressing Info cycles through the various display options, but none includes the current battery status, although that is available on the LCD. When the battery is exhausted, a warning appears on screen lower left about 15 minutes before it dies. The official battery rating is 70 minutes for continuous HD recording, but I was able to do over 2 hours, about 25% for each 30-minute segment. Incidentally, the camera doesn't seem to get very warm, and the manual doesn't even mention an overheating icon. I suppose that means the possibility of that happening is small. On the SD card, files are recorded in 4 GB chunks with about 25 minutes of HD or 5 minutes of 4K in each. Other manufacturers have figured out how to get 30 minutes or more in a single file. Why hasn't Nikon? The current chunk's file name flashes yellow and then red as it switches to the next file. There isn't a lapse time display, and as it runs out it starts to flash and then stops. Press the red button to continue recording. The D850 supports interval shooting for stills and time-lapse for video, capturing a series of images that are saved as a video file at the current settings. Both the interval and the time settings are extensive, and there's an option to shoot silently. While shooting, the screen is black, the LCD times the minutes, and the results are, of course, silent. The 24-120 lens is not particularly video-friendly. The AFS focus motor is louder than the AFP system, and I found the zoom action a little too stiff to turn smoothly for production use. All to say, this isn't the ideal lens from Nikon's selection for video. I took the D850 to DSC Labs to measure the dynamic range using a XYLA chart, where each rectangle going from left to right reduces light by 1 stop. With my eyes, in a dark room, I can see about 18. In HD video mode with picture control standard, I set the shutter to 1/60th, aperture to f/16 and connected the Shogun to record the output and see a waveform view. I started with the brightest rectangle at 60% on the Shogun's waveform, increasing the gain until it reached 100% at ISO 800. I flipped over to the histogram to confirm, and then I turned on the highlight display, which I'd set to 255. I could see and measure about 11 stops with both the standard and neutral picture control settings. Switching to the flat setting, the response curve changes to reveal 13. Switching back to standard, I tried active delighting and turned it up to extra high, and that's 11 stops also. After you install Snapbridge, Nikon's free wireless image transfer app, I'm using an iPad, use Connect to Smart Device to set up. The process is nearly seamless, and there are a few more hiccups in iOS than Android. After the connection is established, it is maintained automatically. Location and time are synced and update as you travel using Bluetooth, but these are options. When you take a photo, it automatically transfers to the device, very useful for social media. The app also functions as a remote, but it can only take photos, not video. Touch the subject to focus, the shutter to snap. When you start with the D850, there's some manual reading required just to figure out where things are, like pressing the autofocus switch to select autofocus modes, or how to capture a custom white balance, but once you understand where things are and how they work, it does make the D850 quite easy to use. In most cases, I'd rather have a dedicated button than to have to navigate the menu. But some of these buttons are like Easter eggs. Press the OK button in Live View to activate an on-screen meter and the exposure preview for manual mode. Neat, but there's nothing intuitive or natural about this. It does mean a lot of buttons, dials, and switches have been deployed all over the camera. But there's only one button I'm not crazy about, the OK Confirm button on the left side. I think I just need to press the center of the control dial. It confirms most things, but not all. Like format, you have to remember that the OK button is on the other side. I did want to try the battery grip, which offers not only longer battery life, but a portrait mode grip and a slightly higher burst rate with the mechanical shutter. Nikon provided the 4 parts that you'll need: the MD18 grip itself, and the EN-EL18B battery, as well as the MH26A AK charger for the battery and a special BL5 cover to hold the battery in place in the grip. Included with the grip is a sled to use the standard EN-EL15 battery, as well as a sled that holds 8 AA batteries. With the battery, the grip adds another 400 grams to the weight profile. According to Nikon's CIPA ratings, the EL15 delivers 1,840 shots or 70 minutes of HD video. The EL18, 3,300 images, 145 minutes of HD video. And the 8 AA's will do 1,740 photos or about an hour of HD. When you connect the grip, the battery stays in the camera. With batteries in both the camera and the grip, the battery switches automatically and seamlessly when one runs out, so no interruption if you're recording video. When connected, the battery display shows BP next to the battery level indicator. In the Setup menu, select the battery type. The EL18 is lithium. Yes, all the AAs on this screen confused me too. Select which battery to use first, and display the battery info. The dash means calibration is not required. And battery age is not measured in years, so when it reaches 4, Nikon thinks you should replace it. Incidentally, the charger will also indicate if a battery needs to be calibrated. If the calibration light flashes, press the button to calibrate. The grip has a shutter release, focus joystick, and AF on button. And I really wanted to try the burst. So first, when the battery pack is connected, the continuous high buffer reverts from 34 to 20, identical settings. I couldn't figure that out. With the grip, it takes 9 images per second, but after 8 seconds, it starts to stutter, averaging 7 or so. 24 seconds for 200 images. That's 4 seconds faster than without the grip. There's stuff I didn't get to, like the Live View negative digitizer, but I'm waiting for the Nikon optional negative digitizing adapter to cover that feature. Thankfully, the D850 is extensively and well documented. Nikon includes both a paper manual in the box, a PDF of the manual, as well as a menu guide are available online. Nikon also provides several free personal computer applications to transfer, manage, and manipulate your images and edit your videos. I should review those one day. There's not much to dislike about the menu, except that as more features are included, it becomes harder to navigate and find the feature I remember reading about but now can't find. With some exceptions, it's generally well organized. My main menu aggravation is the dimmed out selections, each with the same generic error message. Several times, after trying all the options I thought might be blocking a feature, I had to resort to a full reset. In this case, time-lapse movie isn't available when an external monitor is connected. For those who will ask, the D850 is made in Thailand, where I'm sure Nikon's quality control is no different than it is elsewhere. The battery charger is included. The camera can't be charged or powered with USB. Let's finish by the light of a single candle. I've set the focus to full servo auto, and I've turned face detect on, although I'm not sure it's doing a great job of identifying my face, even without my glasses. The aperture is f4, the shutter speed is 1/30th. I turned the ISO all the way up to 25,600, and we did capture a custom white balance for this scene. Now I'm going to turn the focus to manual, and I'm also going to go to 4K. I've recorded this scene so that you can see the settings using HD. It's interesting to think about what will happen next. This could well be the last full-frame DSLR, as Nikon has stated its intention to build a full-frame mirrorless camera. In that case, the D850 will be a legacy model, a treasured memento, the epitome of what could be accomplished with this technology. And well, that was a lot to take in. Thanks so much for watching. If you have questions or comments, use the field below. I do read and reply to all relevant and civil comments. And maybe you would like to subscribe.